Father's Day was always quiet in our house. No big cookouts, no homemade cards, just a few nods in my direction, maybe a gift or two if someone remembered. I never really minded. I wasn't the sentimental type. But this year hit different. It wasn't the silence. It was the laughter. My name's Sean. I'm 46. I've been married to my wife, Angela, for 18 years, and we've got 3 kids. Emily's 17, Josh is 15, and little Owen just turned 9. I work as a maintenance supervisor at a local factory, which isn't glamorous, but it's stable, and it keeps the lights on. I don't complain, even when the hours are long or the job is thankless. I've always believed that showing up and staying solid counted for something. Turns out, not everyone sees it that way. I've never been the cool dad. Angela always had more charisma than me. The kids adored her, still do. She's bubbly, good with words, always had a quick joke or a gentle tease. I was more of the background guy. Picked the kids up from practice, fixed leaky faucets, cleaned up after dinner, paid the bills. And for a while, that seemed like enough. But lately, there's been a shift. Subtle at first. Emily used to run to the door when I got home. Now I get a grunt from the couch. Josh only talks to me if it's about money. And Angela, well, she's always tired, or busy, or just needs some space. I chalked it up to teenage moods and long workdays. Figured it'd pass. Figured wrong. So when Father's Day rolled around, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a card. Thanks, Dad. Instead, I walked into the kitchen that morning to find all 3 kids and Angela sitting at the table with grins way too big for 9 a.m. Josh held out a box. "Got you something," he said, trying to stifle a laugh. Emily already had her phone out, recording. I opened it. A plain white mug. Big bold letters printed across it. World's biggest disappointment. There was a moment of silence before they all burst out laughing. Not a chuckle, not a teasing giggle. Full-on laughter. Emily turned the phone toward me, probably catching my reaction on video. Josh slapped the table. Angela snorted into her coffee. I just stood there, holding the mug like it might explain itself. My heart didn't race. I didn't yell. I didn't say anything, really. Just smiled, said thanks, and started cleaning the dishes from their breakfast. It wasn't just the mug. It was the way they laughed. Like it was normal. Like it was deserved. Like they were all in on a joke I hadn't been told. All morning, I kept my mouth shut. Took Owen out for ice cream like we'd planned. Mowed the lawn. Folded some laundry. Kept busy. Pretended like it didn't sting. But the silence in my chest that day, it wasn't quiet. It was loud. Deafening. That night, after everyone was in bed, I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at that mug on the coffee table. Just stared. My fingers curled around the handle. I remember wondering if it had been custom ordered. If Angela picked it out herself. If she showed it to the kids beforehand. If they rehearsed the delivery. I packed my bags around 1 a.m. Just the essentials. A few shirts, some cash, my work tools, a photo of Owen from when he was 5. I didn't leave a note. Didn't slam the door. I just left. 2 weeks later, Angela posted on Facebook. "Please, if anyone knows where Sean is, tell him we just want him home." She included a photo of me at Owen's last soccer game. I looked tired in it. Sunburned. But I was smiling. Holding up a Gatorade bottle for Owen, like some proud suburban dad. The post got dozens of comments. Prayers. Advice. Concern. None of them knew about the mug. None of them knew what that morning really felt like. But before I get to where I went or why I left, you've got to understand something deeper. This wasn't about a single joke. This was years in the making. Little cracks that widened with time. A family that forgot I was more than just the guy who unclogged toilets and refilled gas tanks. And as I started replaying old moments, tiny dismissals, quiet jabs, backhanded compliments, I realized I'd been slowly erased from my own life. This story isn't just about a mug. It's about what comes after someone decides they're done being the family punchline. About how I learned what they really thought of me. About what happens when the disappointment finally disappoints everyone in return. But I'll start at the beginning. Back before Father's Day. Back when the disrespect was still wrapped in smiles. If you asked Angela, she'd probably say our marriage had always been normal. She liked that word, normal. Safe. Stable. I used to think so too. We had routines. Friday night pizza. Saturday morning soccer. Bills paid. Lawn trimmed. Birthdays remembered. From the outside, we looked solid. But inside those routines, I started to feel like wallpaper. Always there. Easy to ignore. Angela was the star of the show. PTA board member, organizing bake sales, posting family photos with captions like #BlessedMomLife. She knew how to play the role, and I didn't mind it at first. I liked staying behind the curtain, letting her shine. But somewhere along the way, she stopped sharing the spotlight and started writing me out of the script entirely. It started with small things. At parent-teacher conferences, she'd introduce herself as Emily's mom with a bright smile. Me? I was just Sean. No husband. No dad. Just a guy tagging along. Occasionally acknowledged if the teacher looked confused about who I was. Once, I tried to chime in on Josh's progress report, and she cut me off mid-sentence with a pat on my arm and a laugh. Sean doesn't really follow all the school stuff, she said. He's more of a tool shed kind of guy. Tool shed kind of guy? Like that was all I was. But I let it go. Because that's what I did. I let things go. Then came the favoritism. Angela always had a soft spot for Emily. Maybe it was the whole mother-daughter thing. Maybe it was something deeper. But the difference in how she treated the kids became too obvious to ignore. Emily got new clothes every season, Monty Python, a $700 phone, just because she's responsible. Josh got away with murder, skipped homework, late-night gaming, even once dented the car backing out of the driveway. Angela laughed it off. Boys will be boys. But Owen? My boy? He had to earn everything. If he spilled juice, he got a full lecture. If he left his backpack on the floor, Angela would say, "Honestly, sometimes I feel like you're turning into your father." And she didn't mean it as a compliment. It tore me up, watching him shrink under the weight of those words. He was the sweetest of the three, quiet, thoughtful, always trying to help. I'd catch him folding towels wrong just to be useful. I started spending more time with him, picking him up from school when I could, sneaking him chocolate milk on our grocery runs. But even that drew looks from Angela. "You baby him too much," she'd say. "No wonder he clings to you." So I backed off. Again, let things go. But it was the week before Father's Day that everything finally snapped. We'd planned a family barbecue. Or rather, Angela did. She invited her sister, some friends, even her old college roommate who was in town. I was told the morning of. Told, not asked. Told to clean the grill. Told to pick up extra buns. Told to be presentable. I spent most of the afternoon flipping burgers while Angela floated from guest to guest like a hostess on autopilot. I didn't mind the work. What got me was the moment I stepped into the living room, plate in hand, and overheard them talking. Angela was mid-sentence, wine glass in hand, laughing. "Oh please, Sean's idea of a wild weekend is watching History Channel reruns and falling asleep by 9. Laughter. From her sister, her friend, even Emily, sitting cross-legged on the carpet with her phone. I stood there for a second, invisible. Then I backed out, set the plate on the kitchen counter, and grabbed a beer from the fridge. I drank it in the garage, next to the water heater. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Angela found me in the laundry room folding towels. "You okay?" she asked, voice a little slurred from wine. "Fine," I said. "You're quiet." "Just tired." She paused. "Don't be so sensitive, babe. It was just jokes. Lighten up." Jokes. She always said that. About the comments. About the mug later. About the way Josh mimicked my walk or how Emily rolled her eyes when I spoke. It's just jokes. But they weren't funny anymore. The breaking point came the Friday before Father's Day. Angela had signed Emily up for a summer writing workshop at a private arts center downtown. $1, $200 for 6 weeks. I found out when the invoice came through my email. I stared at it for a long time, wondering when we discussed it. Spoiler, we hadn't. That night, I brought it up. Calmly. "Hey, did you already register Emily for this workshop?" Angela didn't even look up from her phone. "Yeah, why?" "It's just, that's a big expense. I thought we'd talk about it first. She needs this, Sean. You know how much she wants to get into that arts magnet program." "I get that. I just wish we'd." "Oh my God, it's not a big deal. Why do you always make things so difficult?" "I'm not trying to be difficult," I said, keeping my voice even. "I just think we should agree on big expenses." She scoffed. "You don't care about her future. You never support anything that matters." That one hit. Not because it was true, but because I realized she believed it. I slept on the couch that night. Not because she told me to, but because I couldn't stomach being next to someone who saw me as dead weight. The next morning, Owen came into the living room while I was lacing up my boots for work. He crawled into my lap, quiet, just laid his head on my shoulder. "Dad." "Yeah, bud. You're not a disappointment." I didn't know what to say. I just held him tighter. And then came Father's Day. You already know about the mug. But what you don't know is what happened that night. After I packed my bags and sat in my truck for an hour, I almost turned back. Almost. But then I thought about the barbecue, the mug, the way Josh didn't even flinch handing it to me, the way Angela laughed, and the invoice, and the way Emily smirked behind her phone screen as I faked a smile and pretended it was all fine. I thought about all of it, and I drove away. I didn't leave a note because I didn't think they'd read it. For 2 weeks, I stayed at a cheap extended stay motel near the edge of town. I called into work and told them I needed time off, burned through my sick days, my vacation, even some unpaid leave. I shut off my phone and let it buzz itself into oblivion. I didn't even check the messages at first, but curiosity got the better of me around day 10. Dozens of texts, most from Angela. Where are you? This isn't funny, Sean. The kids are asking questions. Seriously, grow up. Then a shift. I'm worried about you. Just come home, okay? Please, Sean. I'm scared. Emily's been crying. Owen's not eating. If anyone knows where Sean is, tell him we just want him home. That one came with a link to her Facebook post. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because I didn't believe her. Not yet. I needed to know if they missed me or just missed the convenience of me. There's a difference. And it mattered. I started making notes. Writing down everything from the last few years that had felt off. Every slight. Every joke. Every time I'd been treated like the afterthought in my own home. It was a long list. And the more I wrote, the more I started to wonder, what if I didn't go back? What if I did something else? Something bold. Something they'd never expect. Because here's the thing about people who treat you like a disappointment. They never think you'll do anything to disappoint them back. They think you'll stay. They think you'll take it. They don't expect the quiet guy to walk away. And they definitely don't expect what I was about to do next. But I'll get to that. Right after I tell you about the last conversation I had with Angela before I left town completely, and the one moment that proved everything I feared was true. Because believe it or not, the mug wasn't the most hurtful part. Not even close. Rock bottom doesn't always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a lukewarm cup of gas station coffee at 6 a.m. in a motel lobby that smells like mildew, watching CNN on mute, and wondering if anyone would really notice if you disappeared for good. That's where I was, 3 weeks after I left. I didn't have a master plan. I didn't storm out to teach them a lesson. I didn't even know where I was going when I backed out of the driveway that night. I just knew I couldn't stay. But what happens after you leave? What happens when the silence sets in and you're left with your thoughts, your regrets, and a stale vending machine muffin? I thought I'd feel free. But freedom without purpose feels a lot like floating. And I didn't know how to stop drifting. The motel was cheap. $49.99 a night. No housekeeping unless you asked. I paid cash for the first 2 weeks. After that, I started running low. I wasn't broke. I had some savings, but the longer I stayed away, the more I felt the tug of real life tapping on my shoulder. I couldn't hide forever. My boss, Gary, had been patient. He called once, left a message that said, "Whatever's going on, you've got 3 more days before I have to replace you, man. Hope you're okay." I didn't call him back. Couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I picked up a few shifts at a construction site 2 towns over. Cash under the table. Just enough to keep the room. I worked with guys who didn't ask questions. We shared smokes during breaks and swapped stories about cars, busted tools, and once, briefly, about ex-wives. I told them my name was Steve. It just felt easier. At night, I started writing. Not like journaling. I'm not that poetic. But something about getting it all down on paper, everything I'd swallowed for years, it helped. The day I finally cried wasn't over the mug, or Angela, or even the kids. It was Owen. I was sitting on the edge of the motel bed, staring at a drawing he'd made months earlier. Crumpled, water-stained. He'd given it to me after a school art project. 2 stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. One labeled me, the other Dad. That broke me, because no matter how bad it got, he was still mine. He still looked at me like I was worth something. And I left him. That guilt stayed with me. Still does, if I'm being honest. But guilt wasn't going to fix anything. Neither was sitting in a motel watching reruns of Pawn Stars. So I started planning. Not revenge. Not yet. Just survival. I cashed out a small investment account Angela didn't know about. Something I'd built from overtime bonuses and holiday pay over the years. It wasn't much, but enough to get me out of the motel and into a tiny studio apartment on the edge of a sleepy little town called Maple Hollow. Population, maybe 800. The apartment had ugly beige carpets and a shower with inconsistent water pressure, but it was mine. The first place I'd lived alone since I was 24. The town was quiet. People waved at each other. There was a diner, a hardware store, and a bait shop that doubled as a liquor store on weekends. I found work quickly, maintenance supervisor at a senior living complex. Smaller paycheck than the factory, but a lot less stress. And oddly enough, the residents liked me. Mr. Kepler, a retired mechanic with a bad hip, started calling me kid, even though I was barely 15 years younger. Miss Lorraine, who had dementia, thought I was her son and handed me peppermints every morning. It was peaceful. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I started waking up early, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I'd walk to the diner, grab coffee, and talk to the cook, Brian, who looked like a grizzly bear and gave out unsolicited life advice like candy. "You look like a man who's been through the ringer," he said one morning, sliding me a plate of hash browns. I nodded. "Divorce. Or something like it." He just grunted. "Join the club." I didn't explain further. He didn't ask. That's what I liked about Maple Hollow. No one needed your resume. You showed up, did your job, and people respected that. I bought a used truck. Nothing fancy. A 2008 Silverado with a dent in the door and a busted AC. It ran like a dream. I fixed it up on weekends. Bit by bit. Just like I was fixing myself. One Saturday, I passed a little bookstore tucked between a florist and a nail salon. I don't know what pulled me in, but I wandered around for an hour and left with a paperback called The Art of Not Being Invisible. It was cheesy, but there was a chapter about self-worth that stuck with me. It said, if you're always the one making things work, they stop noticing you're the reason everything still works. That felt too close to home. By month 3, I was feeling human again. Stronger. Clearer. I started going to a local bar on Friday nights. Nothing rowdy. Just darts and decent jukebox music. I met a few people. Made a couple friends. People who didn't know me as Angela's husband or the disappointment dad. Just Sean. Just me. And then one night, while watching a local trivia night, I saw a familiar face walk in. Angela's cousin, Derek. I almost dropped my drink. He didn't see me at first, but when our eyes met, his jaw tightened. "Sean?" he said, walking over like he wasn't sure if I was real. I nodded. "Hey, Derek. What happened, man? People thought you were dead." I sipped my beer. "Not dead. Just needed out." He pulled up a stool. "Angela's been a wreck. She posted all over Facebook. She called everyone. Said you abandoned them." I raised an eyebrow. "Did she tell you about the mug?" His brow furrowed. "The what?" I laughed softly. "Never mind." He looked me over, then around the bar. "You living out here?" "Yeah." "Damn. You look different. Happier." I didn't say anything. Just shrugged. He tapped the counter. "Look, I'm not here to drag you back. That's between you and her. But, for what it's worth, I always thought they treated you like crap. Especially Emily. Girls got Angela's sarcasm with none of the charm. That surprised me. Derek was always one of the louder ones at family gatherings. I figured he thought I was a joke too. "She said you just snapped," he continued. "That you left over a stupid mug." I leaned back. That mug wasn't the beginning. It was just the final sentence in a very long chapter. He was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "You know, she never changed the locks." I blinked. "What?" "Angela, your stuff's still in the house. She never boxed it up. She keeps saying, he'll come back. He just needed a break. Like you're on vacation or something." That stayed with me. All night. Because Derek was right. She didn't understand. She thought I was blowing off steam. She didn't realize I was gone. That night, I went home and opened up my old email. Dug through my folders until I found something I hadn't touched in over a year. An idea for a side project I'd started sketching during night shifts at the factory. It was simple. A tool review website. Honest. No sponsor reviews for people like me who just wanted straight answers on what drill to buy. I'd registered a domain, written 3 posts, and let it rot. But now, I had time. So I rebuilt it. Every night after work, I'd write. Test tools. Record voiceovers on my phone. Taught myself basic web design. Bought a cheap microphone and filmed a few reviews. Within a month, the site was live. Within 2 months, I was pulling in traffic. Small but steady. Comments started showing up. Emails from readers. Even a few affiliate sales. For the first time in years, something was mine. Fully mine. And it was working. I thought my family defined me. That without them, I was just background noise. But I wasn't. I was capable, smart, reliable. I just forgot. Or rather, they convinced me to forget. But I was remembering now. And as the fog lifted, a new question started forming in my mind. If I could rebuild myself from scratch, what else could I rebuild? Because somewhere out there was a woman still posting, "Please come home" messages. Still playing the grieving wife. Still framing herself as the victim. And all the while, she was sitting on a house paid with my sweat, raising kids with the confidence that their father would never fight back. But she was wrong. I wasn't coming home. I was coming for something else. And I just figured out exactly where to start. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but I wasn't aiming for cold. I was aiming for quiet. Precise. Undeniable. By the time fall settled over Maple Hollow, leaves curling into crispy reds and golds, I wasn't the same man who'd sat paralyzed in a motel room weeks earlier. My hair had grown longer, peppered with silver at the temples. I'd lost a few pounds from labor and skipped meals, but it wasn't the weight that changed. It was the posture. The silence that used to feel like retreat now felt like armor. I wasn't licking wounds anymore. I was sharpening knives. Not literal ones, of course. I'm not that kind of man. But if you've ever been dismissed, mocked, taken for granted by the people you loved most, then you know the kind of mental edge I was cultivating. And I knew exactly where to aim it. Here's the thing about disappearing, it freaks people out. But reappearing? That's worse. Especially when you return as someone they no longer recognize, and someone they can no longer control. The first part of my plan required information. Not revenge yet. Not contact. Just truth. I started slow. Made a burner Facebook account and added a few innocuous folks from my past. Old work buddies, high school friends, even a cousin or two from Angela's side who were too polite to ask questions. I didn't post. Didn't comment. I just watched. Angela's Facebook was still public. And she was still posting. Photos of her and the kids smiling at some pumpkin patch. Hashtag blessed. A birthday shout out to Josh. Can't believe my big man is 16 today, with a photo of him holding a brand new Apple Watch. A Sunday brunch selfie with her sister captioned, "Strong moms stick together." No sign of me. Not one mention since her "Please come home" post had dried up 3 months prior. But what caught my attention wasn't what she posted. It was what she didn't. No pictures of Owen. No mentions. Nothing. It was like he'd been erased. That told me something had shifted. I needed more. I still had access to our shared Dropbox account. Angela never changed the password. I used it to back up home videos, tax returns, scanned receipts. She never touched it. One rainy Sunday, I logged in, and that's when I saw a new folder. College apps, M. It had essays, letters, even scanned transcripts. I opened the personal statement first. Emily had always wanted to be a writer. It started with a quote from Maya Angelou, something about courage. Then this. Growing up, my father was physically present, but emotionally absent. He lived in our house like a shadow, silent, grim, disappointed. My mother taught me everything I know about strength, about joy, about how to rise above people who don't see your worth. I read that paragraph 4 times, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed everything I feared, that she didn't just disrespect me in private. She was rewriting the story in her own favor, erasing my contributions, painting me as some moody absentee dad in order to sound inspiring on her application. I backed out of the document and stared at the screen. Angela hadn't written that. Emily had, but Angela let her. Angela nurtured that version because it benefited her too. I needed someone on the inside, someone who hadn't chosen a side. I needed Owen. It took me 3 days to work up the courage to reach out. I didn't call. I couldn't risk Angela answering. So I mailed him a letter. Plain envelope. No return address. Just the local library's address as a cover. Inside, a short note in my handwriting. "Hey buddy, I'm safe. I miss you. I didn't leave because of you. I left because sometimes grown-ups need to make hard choices to protect themselves. If you want to talk, ask Mom if you can go to the library after school. Just once. I'll be there next Saturday at 3 p.m. You don't have to come, but I'll be waiting. Dad." I mailed it on a Monday. Spent the entire week pacing. Did he even get it? Would Angela screen his mail? Would he show up? By Saturday, I convinced myself he wouldn't. I got there early, sat in the far corner of the kids' reading section with a stack of Garfield books and a coffee that went cold. At 2:59, I gave up hope. At 3:02, I heard the faintest voice say, "Dad." He was taller, a little leaner, same big brown eyes. I stood up too fast and nearly knocked over a spinning rack of bookmarks. "Hey, bud." He didn't run into my arms. He just stood there, hands stuffed in the pockets of a hoodie I didn't recognize. But his eyes were glassy. He was trying not to cry. "You're really okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, I am." He sat across from me. His backpack hit the floor with a thud. For a second, we didn't say anything. Then he whispered, "Emily said you left because you didn't want to be our dad anymore." My throat clenched. "That's not true. Not even close. She also said you were going to send lawyers and take money from Mom." I blinked. "Did your mom say that?" He didn't answer. He just looked tired. I reached into my coat and pulled out a photo, one he'd drawn for me years ago. "Remember this?" His face broke. That was the moment. He leapt across the table and buried his head in my chest. We sat like that for a long time. No words, just breathing. After a while, we talked. Nothing heavy. He told me about his new math teacher, about how Josh got caught cheating on a quiz, but Angela talked the school down. He said Emily barely came out of her room anymore, that she had a boyfriend who wore eyeliner and called me her ghost dad. But the part that hit me hardest? Mom's always mad now. She used to laugh more. Mad about what? Everything. The dishes. The internet. That her car battery died and you weren't there to fix it. That made me smile. Just a little. Owen stayed an hour. I walked him halfway home, stopping 3 blocks from the house. Before he left, he turned and said, "I know you didn't leave me." That was all I needed. Now I had my why. And soon, I'd have my how. You see, back when I worked at the factory, I managed a rotating team of about 15 guys. One of them was Carl, older guy, bit of a conspiracy nut, but brilliant when it came to finances. Carl didn't trust banks. Had gold bars buried in his yard. But he also taught me something valuable: how to structure assets. Back then, I didn't think I'd ever need to use what he taught me. But now I had a business. My little tool review site had started gaining traction. I'd grown the YouTube channel to 3,000 subs. Brands started emailing me, offering free samples, asking for shout-outs. I wasn't raking in millions, but I was making enough. And more importantly, I had leverage. So I called Carl, told him I needed to set up a trust. "Anonymous," I said. "Bulletproof." He chuckled. "You divorcing or disappearing?" "Bit of both." We spent 2 weeks drafting paperwork. I transferred the domain, the earnings, and the rights to the content into a business trust under a name no one would ever connect to me. The address was a P.O. box in another state. The beneficiaries? Just one Owen. In 10 years, he'd get everything. Angela wouldn't even know it existed. While I was at it, I called my old coworker Dave from the factory. He owed me a favor after I covered for him during an OSHA audit. "Still know that lawyer cousin of yours?" I asked. "The divorce guy?" "No. The one that specializes in quiet asset separation." "Sean, what are you planning?" I smiled. "Just protecting what's mine." We met in person 2 weeks later. Her name was Jill. She looked like a librarian, but spoke like a scalpel. Sharp, precise, deadly when needed. "I'm not looking to take her down," I said. "I just want to make sure she can't take me for a ride later." She nodded. "Smart. You want to play chess, not war." We set up safeguards. Started documenting everything I could: financial contributions, receipts, screenshots. Even Emily's essay. Not to weaponize. Just to protect myself if things ever escalated. But something Jill said stuck with me. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is indifference. If you rebuild your life so fully that they can't touch it, that hurts more than anything you could ever say. She was right, but I still wasn't done. Because the final piece was walking back into their world. On my terms. Not as a victim. Not as the disappointment. But as a ghost returned with purpose. And the perfect opportunity was already on the calendar. Josh's 16th birthday party. Angela was throwing a backyard bash. I saw it on Facebook: big tent, string lights, DJ. Her sister was tagging friends. And for some reason, she left the event public. Which meant I had the date, the time, the guest list, and a plan. I wouldn't make a scene. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't even stay long. But I would make sure they saw me, heard me, realized that the man they'd laughed at, the one they'd labeled a disappointment, was no longer theirs to mock. He belonged to himself now, and he was just getting started. But if you want to know how that party went down, you'll have to wait. Because that night changed everything. Josh's 16th birthday landed on a Saturday in late October, the kind where the sky is perfectly clear but the wind carries a warning. I parked 4 houses down from the one I used to call home, engine off, watching from the shadows like a stranger casing the place. I wasn't dressed for drama, no leather jackets or ominous sunglasses, just jeans, a flannel, and boots dusted with gravel from the diner parking lot. The backyard was lit up like a small wedding. Fairy lights strung across the fence, a tent, folding tables. One of those Bluetooth speakers pumping out pop music just loud enough to drown out awkward conversations. I watched Angela from a distance for a moment. She was laughing with her sister, sipping something from a wine glass, and fake smiling at other parents who clearly didn't want to be there. She still looked good, polished, like everything was perfectly under control. Until I walked in. I wasn't invited. I didn't need to be. I waited for the music to lull, the volume to dip as the song ended. Then I stepped through the side gate like I'd never left. Conversation stopped. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Angela froze, her wine glass still held mid-sip. Josh looked like he'd seen a ghost. Emily, sitting near the fire pit with her eyeliner-wearing boyfriend, locked eyes with me and said, low but loud enough to be heard, "No. Freaking way." I gave a soft nod, polite, respectful. I didn't come to rage. "Hey everyone," I said, "just dropping by." Angela walked toward me, face tight, voice tight. "Sean, what are you doing here?" I glanced around at the guests, neighbors, co-workers, teenage friends with plates of cake, and replied calmly, "Thought I'd wish my son a happy birthday." Josh hadn't moved. He was clutching a brand new pair of headphones like a lifeline. Thanks," he muttered. I reached into my coat and handed him a small box. Nothing flashy. Just something I picked out from a secondhand music shop. A classic vinyl album of Pink Floyd's The Wall. I'd played it for him when he was 9. He didn't even like vinyl back then, but he loved the cover art. "Happy birthday, Josh." He took it silently. No hug. No thanks. But he didn't hand it back either. Angela stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You can't just show up like this. This is inappropriate." I looked her in the eye, calm as I'd ever been. I raised him for 15 years. Cleaned his messes, paid for his braces, coached his little league when no one else would. I've earned 5 minutes on his birthday. She bristled. "This isn't about you. You left us." "No," I said. "I left you. Don't twist it." The air tightened. Conversations tried to resume around us, but failed. Then, without warning, Owen darted from the back porch and threw himself at me. He wrapped his arms around my waist like he hadn't seen me in years, which, in child time, he hadn't. "Dad." I knelt and hugged him back, hard. "Hey, buddy." Angela's face went white. "Owen, get back here." He didn't move. "Mom," Owen said, turning. "You lied." Her jaw dropped. "Excuse me. You said Dad didn't want to see us. You said he abandoned us. But he sent me letters. He met me at the library. You never even asked." Whispers spread like wildfire. Emily looked away. Josh stepped back. Angela tried to recover. "You don't understand, Owen. Adults." "Stop," he snapped, with more strength than I'd ever heard in his voice. "You told us he was selfish. But he's the only one who actually listened when I talked." She blinked, stunned. I stood up slowly. "You want the truth, Angela?" I said, voice low but clear. "You want everyone here to know what really happened?" The mug was just the final insult. The real betrayal? It was death by 1,000 dismissals. You erased me from your world one day at a time, and you taught our kids to do the same. People were shifting. A few guests were already pretending to scroll through their phones. Angela's sister was backing away like she didn't want to be in frame. "And while you were painting yourself as the abandoned martyr," I continued, "I was building something." Angela scoffed. "What, a shack in the woods?" I smiled. "No, a company." I pulled out a business card. Simple white. No flash. Wrenchwise Media. Owner and editor-in-chief. I handed it to Josh. "That tool site you follow? The YouTube channel you showed me last year? That's me. Been me all along." His eyes widened. "You said the guy behind that channel made thousands a month," he whispered. I nodded. Angela looked between us, clearly trying to calculate how much that card was worth. Then I turned to Emily. "I read your college essay," I said. Her cheeks flushed. "You called me emotionally absent. That I was a shadow in your life. And maybe that's true. But not because I didn't care. Because I was made to feel unwelcome in my own home. You wanted a story for your application. Just make sure it's one you can live with. Emily didn't respond. Her boyfriend looked like he wanted to disappear. I looked around once more, letting the silence settle. Here's what's going to happen, I said. This is the last time I set foot in this yard. I won't be back. But Owen? He's welcome at my place anytime. I've already filed for visitation. My lawyer says the judge will love the fact that I've documented everything, including that mug. Angela looked like she wanted to speak, but she knew better. I'm not asking for custody. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for respect. I turned to leave, but paused. Oh, and if anyone here wants to know what really happened, I added, just Google my name in a week. The whole story's going live. Names changed, of course, but the world deserves to know what disappointment really looks like. With that, I walked out. I didn't look back. Not when Owen yelled after me. Can I come stay with you next weekend? Not when Angela called my name once, sharp, desperate, fading. Not when the music cut off and the silence swallowed them whole. I got into my truck and drove back to Maple Hollow, heart steady, breath calm. That night, I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and hit publish on a post I'd been working on for weeks. World's biggest disappointment. How I walked away from my family and built a life they can't touch. It exploded. Within 48 hours, it was picked up by Medium's front page, shared by divorced dads, commented on by therapists, linked by YouTubers who'd never heard of me before. But more important than the clicks was the email I got 3 days later. Dad, I read your post. I'm sorry. I want to talk. For real this time. Emily. It wasn't a full apology. Not yet. But it was a start. And that's when I knew I'd won. Not because I hurt them. Not because I embarrassed them. But because I rebuilt my worth without them. And now they had to face the truth. They didn't break me. They revealed me. And I've never been stronger.